earlier webinar series, earlier webinar of this series. The first one was the overview. In the overview, it was just an introductory session in which we undertook tour of our website, its purpose, roadmap, records, guideposts, etc. Then we started phase one, stage one, which was initiating project and appointment of PMC. Here we understood guidelines 79A in detail, provisions of structural audit, criteria for selecting a PMC, among other things. The next one was phase one, stage two, which is feasibility study and report. In this session, we looked at FSI, TDR, base carpet areas, content of feasibility report. We also understood wider applications of this report and common mistakes that occur while preparing the report. Then we proceeded to the phase two. Then we proceeded to phase two, stage one, which was tendering for redevelopment. Tendering for redevelopment, where we looked at the process of tendering as well as actual content and the finer aspects of the tender document. Next one and the last session was phase two, stage two, selecting a developer. In this, we understood how to decide who is the right developer for our particular project, the process of evaluation, selection, importance of transparency, the process criteria, and so on. And now we have reached a pre-construction stage, which is phase three as per our website. It's a crucial phase as we will be vacating our premises. This is an important step, but practically and emotionally as well. So meticulous documentation is essential. Mr. Umesh Dhargalkar will take us through this phase with his in-depth knowledge and expertise. Mr. Dhargalkar is a B.Tech Civil and M.Tech Structural from IIT Bombay with 40 years of experience in civil and structural engineering, especially in buildings, new as well as old. Since last 18 years, he is handling redevelopment projects. He has been regularly conducting certified training programs, public seminars, and webinars since last 15 years and has imparted more than 30,000 hours of training to more than 2,000 engineers. Mr. Dhargalkar is a recipient of 2 national level awards, one as an innovator and another as a trainer in construction industry. He has also received CREDAI MCHI Ratna Award as Master in Redevelopment just last month. Over to Mr. Umesh Dhargalkar.
Thank you, Uma, and good morning to you all. Thanks for joining on this webinar. Now, let's resume our journey of redevelopment. We had a short break after phase one and phase two, which was actually a logical break. It was something like, when you are watching a movie, there's an interval, and after the interval, the real action starts. So far in the first phase and phase one and phase two, what we have been doing can be actually, we have been preparing for a project in our own way through our PMC and through our managing committee. Okay, it's like what we call in cricket net practice. So that's what we've been doing. And now the time has come to play the real game of cricket. I mean, the real game of redevelopment. And that starts with this session. So if I have to identify 3 most important milestones, of course, there are many milestones, and these milestones which are defined on our website also, there are many, okay? They help you keep track of the project from one milestone to the other. But if you ask me about the 3 most decisive milestones in redevelopment, the first one is selection of a developer, which you already done. So we have already crossed the milestone number 1. And now we are a team with a developer, right? Earlier it was the managing committee and the PMC. Okay. Now there's an addition to the team of a developer. So this is one milestone which we have crossed. The second most important and decisive milestone would be when the time comes for you to vacate the premises. आप आपकी बिल्डिंग खाली करके चले जाएंगे. That is again a very, very decisive milestone, which would be something which will happen at the end of this session. And the third milestone is actually basically a conclusion. That is when you come back to your new flats. So if I have to really identify the 3 most important and decisive milestones, number 1, selection of a developer, already done. The second one, when the time comes to vacate your premises, okay, which will be at the end of this session. And then there's a lot of work, almost more than 3 years of work, which goes into construction, everything, and then you come back into your new flats. So let's understand the salient features of this phase. This phase covers the period from selection of developer to vacating the premises. A period of something like approximately 12 months. Now the same amount of time which have already gone into phase 1 and phase 2, which was also approximately 12 months. So 1 साल उसमें चला गया up to development, up to selection of a developer. और 1 साल चला जाएगा up to the time when you vacate your building. Okay, and then 3 more years for the construction and handover. That's how it's going to be your project. Nature. What is the nature of this phase? This phase is a phase for formulation of the project. In this phase, we are going to formulate the project contractually as well as in terms of plans, etc. No actual work will be done on the ground. It's a very tricky phase for a managing committee people, because once the developer is selected, सब मेंबर पूछते रहते हैं, अरे अभी क्या होगा, अभी क्या होगा, अभी तो कुछ नहीं हुआ, अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. There are a lot of things are happening on paper. Agreements are getting prepared, plans are getting ready, everything is happening, but nothing is happening on the ground. So people will get, every evening the managing committee people will get this question. अरे 6 हो गया, 6 महीना हो गया, 3 महीना हो गया, अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. That's the kind of this project. Okay, but remember, what's happening here is the project is getting formulated about how it would be implemented during the construction stage. And in that sense, this is a very, very important phase wherein a proper understanding has to be reached between the society and the developer. Okay, now actions. I mean, there are many steps which have to be followed in this phase. If you think in terms of actions, now that we have selected a developer as an expert in redevelopment and as a sort of a turnkey contractor, कि जिसको we expect कि भाई उसने बहुत सारे projects किए हैं, हमारे project को अच्छे से करेगा. So we expect the developer to take a lead about how the project should go based on his experience. Of course, that lead is not arbitrary. It is governed by the contractual conditions which are set out in the tender document. So it's not that we are giving him a free hand, but we expect him to lead the project. We want him to tell us कि करना क्या है, okay, so that the project can be completed in that much time with that much quality and everything. Then the role of consultants, societies, consultants, PMC and legal advisor, they will act as guides. And society का role फिर ये बनता है कि for the developer to do the project or take a lead, and under the guidance of the consultants, the society should go on providing timely decisions so that the project stands on a proper foundation at this stage. What are the reference documents? Tender and final techno-commercial offer. So tender, so this phase, in this phase, until the development agreement is signed, tender as well as final techno-commercial offer will be the binding documents on both the society as well as the developer. Okay, now sensitivity of this phase. This is a very, very sensitive phase. I would say the sensitivity, I have said it very high. Basically, it is extremely high. What I mean by this is that if you take stock of the projects which fail redevelopment projects which fail, somewhere or the other, you will find most of them fail in this phase. So in that sense, this is a very, very tricky phase and you need to really exercise a lot of caution. Keep track of these 12 months of happenings and control. Okay, give timely decisions and make the project, I would rather help formulate the project. So this, which the last point which I wanted to stress here, be very, very careful about this project, because although this phase can be wrapped up in 12 months, you will find in your own society or the neighboring society, some of my societies where we are the PMC, that the time actually gets stretched to 2 years, sometimes 3 years. Okay. And then a lot of unsavory things start happening. Blame game starts happening. Developer society ko blame karta hai, society developer ko karti hai, everything, all sorts of things happen. So this is a very, very tricky phase. So in this webinar, which is going to, in which I'm going to discuss this phase 3, what are the contents? Basically, number one, preparations for formulating the project. That's what we are going to start with. जिसमें आ जाता है letter of intent and things like that. So you just prepare. Then the second part is legal documentation, development agreement, power of attorney, and such legal documentation. Plans, plans बनेंगे society के जरिए, society will approve the plans. Then the plans will go for statutory approvals. Then whatever flats are there, the flats have to be allocated. So that's the third part. And finally, most important, or rather I would say concluding part, that is vacating your existing units. When I say units, flats, shops, offices, whatever units are there in your existing building. Now, when you are going to go through this journey, right, we are going to have a bearing on our website, wherein we will see a demo of whatever we are going to cover in this webinar, how that is addressed on the website, that is www.redevelopment.info, okay, which is the backbone of the entire webinar series. Now, when we go to the website, obviously every phase and every stage is defined in terms of steps, milestones, records, guideposts, and the SGMs which are required to do the project, all right? And once, after all this, as I said, vacating is a very, very tricky, again, a very important milestone. So we will also see what should be the conditions for vacating. Developer ने आपको बोला vacate करो, आप vacate करेंगे, ऐसा नहीं होता है. There are so many certain precautions to be taken, certain conditions to be met. Then only you should vacate the premises, vacate your building, vacate your flats, and give the letter to enter to the developer so that he can come and start his construction work. So that is again an important aspect of this page, which we'll take at the end of this webinar. Now, just to this is okay. Yeah, just to keep this phase in the entire gamut of the redevelopment project, I always keep this slide, show this slide here for every seminar or every webinar. So now we are at stage 3, which is highlighted in yellow color, pre-construction, wherein development agreement, plans, vacating, etc. happens. About 11 months of time. 11 months, how that figure of 11 months comes, that is given in the website. If you can go on adding all the months for all the activities, you will end up at 11 months. I take it as 12 months or 1 year. Okay. So if you see phase 1 and phase 2, we have already spent almost 1 year. Phase 3, we'll be spending 1 more year, and then 3 more years for construction and repossession. That's how it's going to be. Now, as I said, the first part of phase 3 is preparations. Now we have only selected a developer. Now the time has come to give him a letter of intent, or what is called as LOI, to the selected developer. This after selecting a developer, okay, a letter of intent is issued to the developer and it becomes binding on the developer and the society until a development agreement is signed, because a development agreement might take about 3 months for executing and registering the development agreement. And in those 3 months, okay, what remains binding on both the parties is the LOI. Now, LOI is always conditional. There are many conditions which are put in LOI, which also have a bearing on the tender document and the developer's final techno-commercial offer. And based on that, that LOI is issued and the developer's selection is confirmed from the society's side. Okay. The next thing is that once that LOI is issued, okay, what should be the content of the MOI? As I said, you see on the right-hand side, you see for the first step, there are 3 letters there, M, R, and GP. Like in our previous webinars, M stands for milestone, which is also shown in the bold letters here. Okay, so this issue of LOI is a milestone. Okay, a small milestone. Then R is a record. The LOI becomes a record. It's an important record. Or okay, and GP means a guidepost. तो LOI में क्या क्या होना चाहिए, इसके लिए वेबसाइट पे हमने गाइड पोस्ट दिया हुआ है, so which you can refer to and while you are drafting an LOI. Okay, so the first step here is also a milestone, creates a record, and there's a guide post for that step in the website. The second is that second step is acceptance of LOI by the developer. So developer has to accept this LOI. Okay, now along with LOI, acceptance of LOI, if the techno-commercial offer specifies certain payments to be made to the society or some deposits to be made, for example, earnest money deposit तो आपके पास है ही जब उस developer का जिसको आपने select किया होगा. If there is some additional security deposit to be taken, okay, that deposit also has to be paid. So when the developer accepts the LOI, okay, he also has to make the specified payments to the society and he has to make the specified deposits to the society. Now, in my last webinar, I must have mentioned that developers' performance in this phase can be tricky. So इसके लिए हम क्या करते हैं कि we take some additional deposit and we hold that deposit time of vacating. So that deposit also has to be paid at this stage. Okay, so letter of intent has been issued, it has been accepted by the developer, and he has made those payments, like say maybe your professional's payments, certain deposits, etc. So that also becomes a record. Then the legal title of the society or of the society's plot needs to be confirmed. Okay. Now remember, title of the plot is completely the responsibility of the society. But we would still tell the developer that he has to confirm it at his end. And then say that okay, this is the title which I accept. Sometimes the developer may say that the society lawyer should certify the title. That depends on how you have structured your tender document. If you have structured your tender document in such a way that the title has to be confirmed by the developer, then there is no need for the society to confirm the title. However, the responsibility of defect in title will remain with the society no matter who investigates and confirms the title. Okay. Now, if there is some defect in the title, then certain rectification may be necessary, and the cost of that rectification has to be borne by the society, because title is something which has to be supported by the society only. And if that rectification requires certain additional time to be taken, okay, that time also has to be given to the developer. Of course, developer will help you in rectifying the title, but the responsibility will remain with the society. Now, after confirmation of the legal title, right, once we know that the society is really the lawful owner of the plot, and can sign a development agreement as one party, then we can now go to the confirmation of the other technical aspects. Okay. Now remember, we had certain property documents at the time of feasibility report, maybe at the time of tendering. उसके बाद अगर काफी समय हो चुका होगा, तो it is necessary कि latest property document should be opted, because now the project is going to begin. Okay, or the same property documents like say PR card, CTS plan, DP remarks, etc. All these documents. If your plot is in town planning, then TP remarks. All these property documents again need to be verified and confirmed. Your plans, old approved plans. Then the developer has to survey the plot physically. He may not rely on your plot survey. आपने उसको plot survey दिया है at the time of tender. But he may, and in fact, I would say in all our projects, we insist that the developer also surveys the plot at his end and satisfies himself. Now, based on the plot area, okay, there are different plots area which we talked at length at the time of feasibility report. The plot area reflected on PR card, plot area from CTS plan, okay, physical survey, old approved plan. There are many plot areas. Now, which is the exact plot area which will go for, which will be accepted for development? That has to be decided, and accordingly, its FSI potential has to be worked out. Okay, then what are the final? And then we also have to make a list of the final amenities which are to be provided by the developer and confirmation of the work specifications. So these are the okay, there's one more point here down below. And if your plot is in, say, a layout, then maybe subdivision will be required. If your two societies are going together for one project, then amalgamation would be required. Now, these are the preparations which need to be done before you actually go to the next stage of legal documentation and plans and approvals. So with once we are ready with this preparation, let's see how we can go to legal documentation. So in legal documentation, the first thing that comes is the legal title certificate. As I said, the certificate can be given by the developer's lawyer or the society's lawyer, depending on what has been specified in the tender document. Let me again stress that the responsibility of the title should be clear and marketable will remain with the society. So legal title certificate, that becomes a record. Now there are three legal documents, minimum three, there can be more, or three basic documents, legal documents, which have to be prepared for any project. The first is development agreement. The second is power of attorney, and the third is what is called an individual agreement, or what is called as PAAA, permanent alternate accommodation agreement. Okay, out of these two, the development agreement and power of attorney are kind of prepared together and at the beginning. Okay, so these the agreement, the development agreement, what we insist on in our projects is that the development agreement has to be, I'm saying has to be, it must be based on the tender document. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि आपने टेंडर कुछ बनाया, इस स्टेज पे आप आ गए, and suddenly you out of nowhere you get a new development agreement which has no bearing on the tender document. Okay, so to make sure that your development agreement is based on tender document, I would strongly recommend that the first draft of development agreement and power of attorney should be prepared by the society's lawyer only. I'll repeat, it should be prepared by the society's legal advisor, not by the developer's legal advisor. Because my experience is that we prepare a tender document, and then the developer's lawyer comes and he gives, if he sends us a draft, okay, it has happened 2 or 3 times, and we rejected the draft because that draft came from the developer's lawyer, And the lawyer had no bearing on the tender document. He had taken the draft from some of his, earlier drafts, copy paste, yeah, something. He modified that and sent it to us. And there were a lot of variations in that developer and in that draft as compared with our tender document. So I strongly advise, this is one of the very, very serious mistakes which can happen, because of which then बहुत कुछ आगे problem बनते जाते हैं. So first draft should be prepared by society's legal advisor. Secondly, that draft should, again, that I have also seen that the society's legal advisor also prepares a draft from his earlier, like, what developers does, developers lawyer does, society's lawyer also sometimes does the same mistake. So उसको ये करना है कि he has to prepare a draft which is fully consistent with our tender document and final techno-commercial offer, which are the reference documents. What we also say as a PMC, wherever we are doing the projects, we insist that ये draft development agreement के होने के बाद, remember, development agreement is going to have some annexures. We also insist that our tender document is also made one of the annexures, the entire tender document, so that if anything is missing in the development agreement, well, that has been documented in the tender document, and that comes handy. So first draft should be prepared by the society lawyer only. Of course, once that draft is prepared, I'm not saying it should be binding on the developer. It will go to the developer's lawyer. Then society lawyer and developer's lawyer will sit together, and there will be a series of review. Once the society's lawyer has prepared a draft, the developer's lawyer will review that draft, suggest modifications. Again, and then after the modifications, it is again reviewed by the society lawyer. Some modification. ऐसा करके there's a back and forth process होने के बाद the development agreement will be finalized. Okay, so this review can happen over a number of meetings. Okay, and what is being reviewed here? What is being modified? The DA, then the annexures to the DA and power of attorney. What is power of attorney? See, agreement is between two parties. Okay, but a developer should be able to act on behalf of the society on various forums. Like say, रेरा में उसको जाना है, approval के लिए जाना है. He has to, when he's selling his apartments, there also he has to have a proper power because he's building on society's land. Correct? So a society has to give a power of attorney to a specific power of attorney to the developer to represent him and act on his behalf to get all this, approvals, etc., and also to sell his flats in the market. So that power is given by the society. Which powers are given? They are documented in the power of attorney. So development agreement is a different document. It has its own annexures. Okay. And as I said, in our projects, we have tender also has one annexure. आपके flats के existing carpet area, they will be annexure. Then the specifications will be annexure. बहुत कुछ annexures होते हैं उसमें. Then the commercial terms will be annexures like that. And then the power of attorney is given to the developer. Now remember, okay, fine. Then after the 2 and 4 discussion, the development agreement is finalized. I'm saying that the draft is finalized between the managing committee and the developer. Okay, to begin with. Now remember, PMC also has got a lot of significant role to in the development agreement in terms of the contractual terms. So when the PMC has prepared a tender document, all the contractual terms have been put in that. So it is the job of the PMC to make sure that those contractual terms have been incorporated directly or indirectly in the development agreement. Okay. Once this DA and power of attorney has been finalized, okay, then the second thing to finalize is individual agreement, or which is called as PAAA, Permanent Alternate Accommodation Agreement. Again, the first draft has to go from the society. Okay, so this is the third document. What happens? What is the significance of this document? If you own a flat in a building, existing building, okay, obviously you have certain agreement for the flat, for that flat with you right now, for your existing flat. So when you will get a new flat after redevelopment, you should have a similar kind of agreement pertaining to that flat of yours, which shows your ownership of the flat. Okay, this is that agreement. It's called PAAA or it's called individual agreement. Remember, development agreement and power of attorney, they will come to an end when the project is over, when the construction is over, you come back to your flats and everything, because they are called co-terminus with the project. Project खत्म हो गया तो DA or POA का significance is gone because the project is over. They are only for making the project happen. But a PAAA agreement will remain with you for your entire life until you sell your flat, because that is the instrument which establishes your ownership of your new flat. Now again, when the individual agreement draft is also provided, there will be a series of review between the two lawyers, your lawyer and their lawyer. Okay. Okay. Now PAAA is restricted only to the kind of, the flats, whatever, or those terms which are pertaining to the flat, whereas development agreement is concerning all those contractual obligations and requirements which are for the entire project, not for one flat. Okay, so that's the difference. So it will go to review, modify, and review again. Okay, and after a series of such discussions, joint discussions, then the PAAA draft will be finalized between the society and the developer. Okay, under the guidance of their lawyers and society's PMC. And once these drafts are finalized, then they are presented, then there's a general body meeting called. Okay, and the drafts are got approved from the general body of the society, all three drafts. Okay, with some modifications if required. The drafts are presented to the members, and there's a discussion and all, and then the drafts are approved. Once the drafts are approved, then the next, that again is a milestone. If you see here, say number 7 stage is a milestone, and there's an underline which shows that there was a general body meeting for this. This is the 7th general body meeting. If you remember, if you actually go on counting the general body meeting which you have specified, which is shown in the website also, this is the 7th one. Okay, 7th pre-identified general body meeting. There can be more, but I don't think there should be any less than 7 general body meetings at this stage. Then the DA, then the development agreement and PAAA, they are executed and registered development agreement. This is again a milestone, and the record is created. What is the record? The DA itself. And now, once the DA is executed, okay, in the DA itself or in the tender document itself, there must be certain kind of obligations specified to be met by the developer on execution of DA. मतलब DA होने के बाद society को 10% corpus देना चाहिए, something like that. Which is one of the obligation. There can be something else also. Or DA हो जाने के बाद, like say for example, your land is say a leasehold land, okay, or it's a collector's land, and a certain premium is to be paid to the collector on behalf of the society. Okay, the developer will not pay the premium for your land until he has got his development agreement signed, because he has no security. उसने payment करके, because the payment can be in crores. If you have a leasehold land owned, and the owner of the plot is an individual, is a party. Okay, if they are demanding say maybe 8 crore rupees for giving you the conveyance of a leasehold land, now the 8 crores have to be paid by the developer, but he will not pay it until you sign a development agreement with him. But once that development agreement is signed, and there's a provision in the DA that उसके बाद he has to make the payment of say 8 crores to the owner, current owner of the plot, or to the collector in form of say premium, etc. All such obligations, there can be, sir, whatever, those obligations have been specified कि DA होने के बाद क्या-क्या होना चाहिए. So those obligations will have to be discharged on execution of the deed. So this brings us to the end of the legal documentation, of course. Oh yeah, then and issue the power of attorney to the developer. So 3 legal documents: development agreement, okay, power of attorney. Development agreement has to be executed, and that becomes a contract. That is the real contract, and by virtue of that contract, certain powers accrue to the developer, and which are given to him through the power of attorney. And your PAAA draft has been approved. You have not yet signed PAAA. DA आपने साइन कर दिया, POA दे दिया, लेकिन अभी आपने PAAA अप्रूव करके रखा है, साइन नहीं किया. अब तक साइन नहीं करेंगे जब तक आपका फ्लैट का पूरा ढांचा आपके सामने नहीं आता. So now let's go to the plans and approvals. So legal documentation, now plans, approvals, and then allocation of the plans. That's what we'll talk about. So plan का approval कैसे होता है? Many times people ask this question. अरे जब भी वो plan आता है, आप does the society have any say? हमको हमारे हिसाब से plan मिलेगा क्या? In all our projects, we have worked in this way that society always has a lot of say in preparation of the plan. Some people tend to think कि builder कुछ देता है हमको लेना पड़ता है, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. But it has to be carefully documented in the tender document right from the beginning. You will have all the say in preparation of the plan. Okay, obviously that doesn't. I mean, okay. So how does the sequence of approval of plans happen? First, the developer through his architect, the developer's architect gives us architectural floor plans. We are not asking for all the plans of the building. Remember that, because वो plan जो बनते हैं ना, वो step by step बनते जाते हैं. The most basic plans are the floor plans, wherein our flats are seen, the developer's flats are sale flats are seen. Okay, so there we have a lot of things to say कि हमको हमारे flats कैसे चाहिए. Passage कैसा दिखाया, kitchen का location, size of the rooms. We have got a lot of things to say. Of course, once these plans come, then your PMC will sit on it, and then he will review the plans and send a report, okay, to the society and to the developer based on the PMC's observations and say maybe managing committee's observations. The plan, again we will go to review, modify, review. So this time it is between the developer's architect and your PMC simultaneously with the developer and the society managing committee. Okay, so the plans are reviewed back and forth until you are satisfied with your flat. I mean the plans of your flats on the floor. Okay, then the lift का size, staircase वगैरह सब उसमें दिखाया जाता है and floor plans दिखाए जाते हैं. So that's all. Once that is done, then so that's what. So we finalize the architectural floor plans with the help of PMC and managing committee. And if you see here, step number 1, architectural floor plan में क्या होना चाहिए developer के? There's a guidepost. Okay, we have prepared a guidepost wherein we have given a list कि आपको developer के से जब भी plan मिलते थे what should be there, आपको वो मांग के लेना है. Then how the floor plans are to be reviewed and approved, उसके लिए भी हमने guidepost दिया हुआ है. And once the plans are finalized, I have not said approved. I'm only saying finalized. Okay, by the PMC and MC on behalf of the society and by the developer and architect. Then एक तो उसका milestone बन गया कि एक plan का एक level तक अपना final हो गया. That's what M means. M stands for, and that plans they have become a record. Now with these plans, हमने उनको दे दिया. Then we tell the developer कि भैया ये अभी फ्लोर प्लान तो ठीक है. Now we want the plans for the entire building. When I say entire building, all the floors, okay, including refuge area, including lifts, including staircases, including amenities, including, you know, society office, then whatever recreational areas, terrace, then car parks, then entry of vehicle, exit, if there is a ramp, all these details. Okay. What I mean by proposal plans is that the plans which will be eventually submitted to BMC or MADA or whichever is your approving authority for approval. Detailed plans based on the plans which are finalized in stage 3 or in step 3. So these detailed proposal plans have to be provided by the developer to the PMC, to the society PMC. उस प्लान में क्या होना चाहिए? Proposal plan में, which I just mentioned, there's a guidepost. You can look it up in our website. Then once these plans have come, then the PMC will review the plans, proposal plans, and prepare a report. He will check if we are number 3, I mean step number 3 में जो plans हमने approve किए थे, are they the same plans or are they different? How does the area measure? Is the entry exit proper? Are the car park adequate car parks are shown? What kind of car parks are shown? All that has to be checked by the PMC. And then he prepares a report and submits to the society and sends it to the developer for any modifications that would be required. So there's a GP or the guidepost for that, and this report also becomes a record. Then once these plans are now ready, okay, these are the plans which will go to the BMC. Now, after then we have to decide about the scheme of allotment of members unit. तो जब भी प्लान्स बनते हैं तभी कौन से फ्लैट सोसाइटी के मेंबर के हैं और कौन से सेल के हैं, इतना अप टू स्टेप 5 डिसाइड हो जाता है. ओके, सो when you come up to step 5, you know which total, say if you have say 4 types of flats, okay, then and say there are say 100 flats in your building. So which 100 flats of 4 types all together, किसको कौन सा मिला वो नहीं, totally 100 number of flats of 4 types, say type 1K 40, type 2K, you know, whatever, 30, like that. Okay, 30, 40, 30, 20, 10, whatever. So which are the flats on which floor and which corner, that is decided up to stage 5. Now the time comes that वो 100 फ्लैट तो हमको मतलब दिख रहे हैं, बट कौन से मेंबर को कौन सा फ्लैट देना है, दैट इज कॉल्ड अलॉटमेंट और एलोकेशन. नाउ एलोकेशन देने के लिए, you know, there are some logical methods which are fair to all people, you know, and which are based on a governing principle कि everyone will go, मतलब कोई भी है उसको ऊपर के फ्लैट ही मिलते जाएंगे, ऊपर वाले को नीचे का नहीं मिलेगा unless he wants it. Unless he wants it. There are some families which want lower flats at a lower floor. That's a different thing or a different requirement. But then there are some logical things, or if the members want, it can be done by lottery, which is hardly followed. But there's a logical system. Okay, I don't think we have time to discuss those kinds of details here. So, but then a particular scheme of allotment is proposed, okay, and then we call a general body meeting. It's the 8th general body meeting now, from the beginning till this. And in the general body meeting, these plans are approved, okay, overall. They are shown to the members, the architects, the developers architect will come and make a presentation. The BMC will be there to see whether the right plans are being shown. There's a technical discussion if the queries are answered and everything. And in the same general body meeting, or the general body meeting, even the allotment is finalized by whatever principle has been accepted by the members. So this is how we have come to approval of the plans. Now remember, those plans which are now approved, are signed by the society. They are signed as the plans approved by the society, and the developer must submit only those plans for approval to BMC, MARA or SRA, whichever approving authority, no other plans. So another fear which people have in mind कि developer हमको कुछ अलग ही दिखाता है और उधर कुछ अलग ही submit करता है, ऐसा नहीं होता है. Okay, so the same plans are then finally submitted. The proposal is submitted for approval. Approval of plans as well as submitting proposal, both are major milestones. Like that, you can see here that there are GP, meaning guideposts, etc. They have been identified for each step here. And if you see here, there are guideposts practically for every step here, every important step. So once now the proposal has been submitted for approval, and then the approval is received, which is called IOD. There's a question, what is IOD? It is called intimation of disapproval. मतलब आपको बता रहे हैं approving authority कि क्या क्या disapprove किया. Okay, वो जो disapprove नहीं किया वो approve हो गया. That is how we have to look at. So IOD in SRA, this IOD is also called IOA, intimation of approval. Both mean the same thing. It only means a conditional approval. What it means is that yes, ये बहुत सारा आपका approved है, subject to आपको 1, 2, 3, 4 आपने नहीं किया वो आप करो. मतलब आपका approve है, लेकिन आपको ये चीजें करेंगे तो you don't have to come back to us again. It's been approved. Of course, there is one more stage before going to the stage of IOD, that is called concessions approval, which is basically a technical milestone. Okay, and that is actually handled between the technical people like say PMC and the developers, architect, of course, with the managing committee also in picture. Okay, so once the proposal is submitted for approval, then there's a concessions approval. Okay, after concessions approval, there's an IOD. After IOD, then the developer is supposed to pay. Make payment of, for IOD, he has to make payment of premium, purchase TDR, and all those things will happen with IOD. Now, once these plans are approved by and IOD is received, again, the approved plans are again verified by the society's PMC. So society's PMC checking the plans 3 times. First, when the floor plans are received, okay, and a report is prepared. Second, when the proposal plans are received, and third, when the proposal plans are now now been approved, वो approval सही है कि नहीं, और IOD सही है कि नहीं. So this is the kind of due diligence which your PMC has to do, and now we are ready with the IOD. अभी IOD आ गया है ना, तो जनरली लोग क्या बोलते हैं, IOD आ गया तो चलो वेकेट करने का टाइम हो गया. Practically yes, but not until some other conditions are also fulfilled. So let's see, because as I said, vacating, आपका फ्लैट बिल्डिंग खाली करके उनको देना is a major decision, it's a major milestone which we have, and since this phase itself is very, very tricky and very sensitive. As I said, we have to exercise all kinds of precautions. So let's see what we need to do before vacating. Now, IOD to aa gaya, but as I said, IOD is conditional approval. So if IOD is conditional approval, what are the conditions to be fulfilled, which are mentioned in IOD? Now, after IOD has been received, then the developer will comply with the conditions of IOD. And whether he is complying with it or not, you can actually see it on PMC's website also, or your PMC can also guide you. Okay, so all the conditions which have been specified up to the stage of vacating here have to be complied. Now the time has come. आपको IOD आया है, आपका allotment भी हो गया है. You know, each member knows which flat has been allotted to him. Now the time has come to execute and register the PAAA, which the draft of which you have already approved, along with the D and POA. So this is again a milestone and the record itself is P.A. So इसमें every member, if you have 100 members, each member will have his P.A. signed and he becomes entitled, he becomes kind of legal owner of that flat which has been approved and which will be constructed. Now, fulfill conditions for issuing notice to vacate. Now remember, IOD आ गया इसलिए vacate तुरंत बिल्डर आपको नोटिस देगा ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. IOD is one thing. There are many conditions. You have to go back to your development agreement and see, or maybe you have to go back to your tender document and see what are all the conditions which are required to be met and fulfilled before you vacate. IOD is just one part. IOD is one condition, but there can be many. Okay, so we will see there's a separate slide for that. So I'll not discuss that point here, but he has to fulfill the conditions for issuing notice to vacate. Just IOD aa gaya and he gives you a notice to vacate. This is what should not happen. So he has to fulfill the conditions and then only he can issue a notice to vacate. Even for issuing a notice to vacate, he has to fulfill certain conditions. Then after fulfilling the condition, he will issue a notice to vacate, which becomes a record. Then you vacate the existing units. Iske flat se, iske office se, iska shop se. It's a something like, this is some process which happens over a period of time, let's say 1 month or maximum 2 months. Ho jata hai. Most of the projects or most of the members, they vacate in 1 month itself. Of course, there can be some non-cooperating members. उनके लिए क्या करना है, उसके लिए strategy बनानी पड़ती है. All that is, I don't want to discuss that in a normal kind of webinar here. Okay, certain clauses have to be implemented. Then there can be some flats when there are disputes. There's a father-son dispute. Who's the owner? The flat belongs to the father. The father is not staying, but the son is staying, and son is not willing to vacate. These are the things which are, which make this phase even more, trickier than what it normally is. So, but there are various strategies to handle that, so that to ensure that 2-4 लोग हैं उनके लिए बाकी लोगों का प्रोजेक्ट रुकना नहीं चाहिए. So there are ways. So you vacate the existing units. Now, even if you have vacated all your 100 flats, let's say, still the land is still in your possession. The buildings are still in your possession, legal possession. You may not be staying there. You haven't handed all the land and the buildings to the developer for demolition and construction. So that time is come now. So now you have to give what we call as a possession letter or letter to enter, a legal document to the developer. Okay, but again, there are some conditions to be fulfilled for giving that letter also, like say getting bank guarantees, etc. कोई आपको बैंक गारंटी वेकेट करने के पहले नहीं देता है, बट वेकेट करने के बाद, बिफोर यू हैंड ओवर दैट लेटर ऑफ पोजीशन टू द डेवलपर, उसके पहले तो दे सकता है. So there are additional conditions, like in step 3, fulfill conditions for issuing notice to vacate. Like that, fulfill conditions for issuing letter to enter to the developer. Unless you fulfill those conditions, we will not issue the letter to enter or possession letter, or we will not give a legal possession of our plot to the developer. Okay, so once that is done, then the letter to enter to the developer. Okay, so this is a step where now what we have done is that we have handed over legal possession of our plot and the buildings to the developer so that he can demolish the building and construct new buildings on that. Milestone, a major milestone here. Okay, so this is, as I said, now this is again the second most decisive milestone, and the later also becomes a record. Then the developer, अभी तो आप चले भी गए, and the plot is in possession of the legal possession. You are still the owner. So then the developer will demolish an existing building and obtain a commencement certificate. Okay, unless the buildings are demolished, a project cannot be commenced. When I say project, I am talking about construction. So after demolishing the building, then the commencement certificate is obtained by the developer. That also is a milestone. And then the project is registered in rail. So this is the sequence that of that happens. So we have covered the preparations, the legal documentation, the plans approvals, and finally the vacating. See, each of these steps can be quite intricate if we have to really discuss. Because what we have covered today is something which happens over a period of something like 12 months with a lot of documentation, lot of precautions to be taken, lot of clauses to be followed, so many things to be done. This is a very, I would say, happening kind of a phase. बहुत कुछ होता है इसमें. But those intricacies are something, even if I want to cover them here, आपके वो सब दिमाग में आप सबका रहने वाला नहीं है. In these 12 months, you know, whatever stage you are right now, at that particular stage, what is required to be done? If you want those details, then you can visit that website, our website, www.redevelopment.info, और आपको उसमें बहुत सारा documentation मिल जाएगा. Now, I will give you a little tour of that website only from. Okay. Here. So here we are. Okay. So I am already at the stage. For those of you who are new, there is a home page. But from home page, if you see here, there are 5 phases here mentioned: feasibility study, tendering, pre-construction, construction, and repossession. So we are at this third pre-construction stage. Correct? So if you see this page, you have a box here, what's new, so announcements. Then since I have logged in as a user, okay, I'm able to access the guide posts, which only a registered user can access. Rest of the website can be accessed by anyone. So here on your website, on this website, on the home page of pre-construction phase, you will see some notes, legal documentation. This is that note which talks about legal documentation. There's a more button here at the bottom. If you click here, that note will open up and you will get to see more information. Then there is plans and approvals, permission, wo kaise lana hai. Whatever I explained to you, a little note about that. So there also there's a more button which you can use to get more information. Then how to vacate units. Vacating stage के ऊपर है ये third. And finally, review of plans. Plans में क्या-क्या देखना चाहिए. Okay. So these are the major notes which are shown on the homepage of pre-construction stage. Now, let's see what are the steps involved. So I'm going at the top here. You can see here at the top there is a roadmap tab here. Okay, and in the roadmap tab, there are 4 stages which I just mentioned to you: preparations, legal documentation, plans and approvals of permissions, and vacating units. All whatever steps we discussed today. So you can start with preparation. I'll only show you. So what you can see here. So these are the steps, 5 steps for preparation, which go under the name of preparation. Okay. Then, okay, for each step you can see here, issue letter of intent here, first step. Okay, the first step is to issue letter of intent to selected developer, and by whom? Who will do this? Managing committee. The particulars about that What is LOI? LOI is to be issued to selected developer after NOC is issued from Deputy Registrar. For suggested content of LOI, refer to guidepost. अभी suggested content of LOI मतलब LOI में क्या क्या होना चाहिए. यहाँ पे राइट में आप देखेंगे, you will see here, this is M because it's a milestone. There's an R here because there's a record also which is LOI. And guidepost आपको दिखना है कि आपको LOI में क्या है. Just click on that, I'll show you. That guidepost is opening up. Please log in, it is saying. Okay, I have to log in. I will take my time. If you want to have access to guidepost, then you have to log in. So once you log in, you get to see that there are two guideposts for preparation stage. And if you see here the contents of LOI for developer, उसमें क्या क्या होना चाहिए, validity होना चाहिए, activities क्या क्या है, conditions क्या है, payment deposits, what we talked about. So this all should be there in your letter of intent. So this is how guideposts you can use for getting more information, guided information kind of. Now let me. So we had a look at, we were having a look at preparation. So this is where we were. So there are 5 steps here, and then step by whom particulars and the indexes of whether it's a milestone record or whether there's a guidepost. Now, like that, if I go to the legal documentation, you got 21 steps. 21 steps here. I won't go through them now because it will. I have already discussed it broadly in previous slides. But I draw your attention to this HGBM 7 here, which I mentioned to you. Okay, for approval of DA and all this thing. Okay. There are indexes for this also. Then let's go to plans and approvals and permissions. Here you can see finalization of plans, etc. And again, HGBM 8, where you approve the plans. This is what it is. Okay. There are, again, submit initial architectural plan, guidepost. So you can, plan में क्या क्या होना चाहिए. If you want to see that, I'll just again show you. So what should be there in the plans? ये होना चाहिए. Then there are other guideposts also below. So if you are plans and approvals and then vacating. Let's see the steps for vacating. These are the steps. There are about 14 steps for vacating. Again with milestones, records, and guideposts. Now, if you want to see all the milestones for this phase as a list, then all the milestones, you have to click on this tab here. ये milestone वाला tab इधर. ये इसको अपन click किए थे, then you will get to see this, all the milestones for phase 3. Like that, if you want to see all the records, I mean records for each, let's say plan के लिए record क्या क्या बनते हैं, a list of records. So these are the records. And what are the guideposts available for each of the 4 stages here? Again, plan के लिए देखते हैं. Which are the guideposts? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 guideposts here. Checkpoints for PMC review. Desired content of proposal plans. Proposal plan में क्या होना चाहिए? And what are the checkpoints for PMC review? You can tell your PMC to refer to this and prepare his report. So I think this is what I wanted to share with you from the website. Now let me again go back to the presentation. Okay. Now this is just a summary of what we saw on the website. There are 5 steps for preparation, 21 steps for legal, and 19 steps for plans and approval, 14 steps for vacating. So almost 60 steps here for this phase. Now, which are the milestones and where that HGVM required? This is a kind of a summary for about of what we saw on the website. Which are the records and reports? There are 9 reports. There are 9 milestones. There are 9 reports. Oh, sorry, not 9 reports. There are 18 reports here for this case. And there are 7 guideposts right now. We haven't uploaded the legal guidepost yet. So we have actually covered phase the webinar for come to the end of the webinar for phase 3, this webinar. But as I said, before you vacate, vacating your flat and handing it over to the developer is a major decision, is a major milestone. So what are the conditions for vacating and handing over the flat, your building to the developer? So let's have a look at that. Remember, before you vacate, these are the crucial conditions which you'll need to check. इसको चेक किए बिना आपको बिल्डिंग फ्लैट वेकेट नहीं करना है, ना डेवलपर को फ्लैट का लीगल पोजीशन देना है. So condition, there are 2 conditions. One, as I said, the conditions for vacating. Okay, so conditions for issuing notice to vacate. As I said, that just IOD आया इसलिए आपको developer ने he should not give you a notice and tell you that you vacate. There are so many things he has to do. Now these things will have mention in the tender document first and then the development agreement. So what are the conditions? Development agreement, power of attorney and PAAA, all 3 agreements must be signed. DA और POA तो होता है बहुत बार, कई बार PAAA नहीं होता है, people say हम बाद में करेंगे. I think it should normally not be so. So when you vacate the flat, you should vacate with your PAAA agreement, wherein you know which flat belongs to you, which floor, what is the flat number on which floor, etc. Then second point, all statutory approvals have to be received, not just IOD. Okay, IOD, as I said, is a conditional approval. So when I say conditional approval, there are conditions even put by BMC or the approving authority. Now those conditions, at least many of them, have to be met with. Not our conditions, no? Unke conditions, IOD. So they also have to be met with. Then there are some societies where I have seen that people have vacated or IOD आ गया इसलिए vacate कर दिया. But some important approval, like say one which we call as environmental approval, MOEFCC. Okay, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Environment, Forest and Climate Change. ये इसका approval आने में बहुत time जाता है. And unless and until you get this approval, you cannot start the construction. So it is always better that you vacate after such all these important approvals are received. Else what will happen if you have not received MOEFCC? IOD आगे आपने vacate कर दिया. Okay, ठीक है, problem नहीं. But suppose ये MOEFCC takes another 6 months. Then it is not good for even for the developer because he will have to pay you rent for those 6 months, whereas he doesn't get any benefit out of that. So it will be a wise thing to vacate after all important statutory approvals. Then we just जैसे blank IOD होता है ना, छोटा IOD, or what we call it the coca IOD. It's called the coca IOD, and I don't know why. the developer has not invested any money. We should not vacate with that. We should vacate only when all the premiums are paid and TDR, etc. is also purchased for agreed development potential. What is agreed development potential? Suppose your building is going to be, say, a 32-story building. Okay, and your flats are going to be up to say 20th floor. Up to say 24th floor. Okay, then if your flats are up to 24th floor, तो आपका IOD 24th floor तक तो आना ही चाहिए. उसके ऊपर का maybe you are not directly concerned. Okay, so that is what is called minimum development potential. मतलब कम से कम इतना आना चाहिए. So that when you vacate, all those 100 flats are accommodated on those 24, which are accommodated on those 24 floors. Uska approval aa gaya. So your flats are secure. That is called minimum development potential. Whereas the other development potential is called entire development potential. Wherein what we do is that we insist on the developer that you get all the flats right up to 32nd floor or whatever approved, not just society's flats, but your sales flat also. But whether the IOD will be received with minimum development potential or with entire development potential, okay, it will depend on the terms with which you are appointed a developer. Tender में आपने क्या लिखा है, DA में क्या लिखा है, कौन से स्टेज पे या टेक्नो कमर्शियल ऑफर में क्या लिखा है. If it is minimum development potential, फिर उतना तक आएगा. But whatever has been agreed, that those payments should be made and that IOD should be received. Then agreed payouts to members. आपके रेंट, मतलब मेंबर के लिए कुछ कॉर्पस होगा, रेंट होगा, सोसाइटी के लिए होगा, डेवलपर कंसल्टेंट के PMC लॉयर के पेमेंट होंगे. All these payments which have become due at the time of IOD or at the time of vacating, they should be paid to you, including the post-dated checks. I don't like the idea of developer giving you post-dated check. 3 साल का प्रोजेक्ट है, तो some developers will say, हम आपको हर साल का 12 महीने का post-dated check we will give you at the beginning of that year. I don't think that should be accepted. Okay, so if it is 36 months, you can take those 36 months post-dated checks or whatever, or maybe it is a yearly post-dated check. एक साल का अगर एक PDC होगा, so 3 post-dated checks. So that whatever payouts are to be made to the members, societies, consultants, etc., should be secured before issuing notice to vacate. And one very important thing, developer is eventually going to sell his flats to his buyers. Okay, I always suggest, and we also put it in our tender document and the development agreement, that the developer's sale agreement should also be reviewed by the society. किसको कौन से terms पे बेच रहा है? Because bylaws etc. which are for the society should also be applicable to the flats which are purchased from the developer. This is especially very important when the developer is constructing commercial spaces and sale. So we don't want to restrict the developer. Okay, if beyond a certain if you have put certain restrictions in the tender document itself, those restrictions should also be part of that. So these are the conditions which have to be met before the developer issues a notice to you to vacate the premises. ये तो vacate करने का हो गया. अभी आपने vacate कर दिया, but now the developer, we have to give a physical as well as legal possession of the plot to the developer. So what are the conditions for that? So conditions for issuing letter to enter to the developer. Number 1, all the securities. Meaning, if developer has agreed to give you bank guarantee, then the bank guarantee आना चाहिए. तभी आप उसको legal possession देंगे. If he is giving you some additional security in form of lien on his sale area, कुछ flats, कुछ shops पे, lien दे रहा है, that document also should be finalized and signed and delivered before that. Now, if you have asked for some cash deposit, okay, as a security and which has been agreed by the developer, so that also should be received from the developer. Then the insurance for the project. We always believe in total insurance. Remember that. There are developers which you see the requirement, the statutory requirement for insurance is very small. It is only mainly workman's compensation. Whereas ideally what you should have for a redevelopment grade is a complete project insurance. Complete means everything should be covered. When I say everything, what is it called? It's a CAR, car policy. Nothing to do with the car which you drive. Car policy means comprehensive all risk policy. Okay, together with workman's compensation, WC, meaning the labor part to be covered, together with third-party insurance, third-party cover. So this is the kind of insurance which is there in the interest of the society as well as the developer. It is definitely in the interest of the developer, but just sometimes some developer just to save some small amount of money, वो छोटा ही policy लेते हैं, that should not happen. So you should insist on this kind of insurance and a detailed project schedule up to handover. Now the construction is going to start, right? So how is the construction going to go? In the next 36 months or whatever time frame we have given to him, okay, what are the different activities? RCC के कितने slab हो गए, कौन से date पे कब? We should ask for a detailed project schedule because that schedule will be useful to you to track the developers' progress of the work. If you don't have a schedule, as I said, now if you don't plan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You should always have a schedule which you must insist from the developer. We always do it on all our projects that the developer should give us all the steps of his project. Sometimes they are 200, 300 steps or whatever. So that we are in a position to track them. अगर ज़्यादा minutely दिया तो हम अच्छे से minutely track कर सकते हैं. उतना minutely नहीं दिया, some 30-40 steps दिए तो उतना ही track कर सकते हैं. But a schedule is required and that schedule will be binding on the developer. So only when you get all these three things, then only you will give the physical as well as legal possession of the premises or your plot to the developer and ask him, give him the permission to demolish the existing building and construct the new buildings. So thank you very much for listening to me. We have this brings us to the end of this webinar.